"I'm not afraid of dying," Tom once told me. "I'm just afraid of waking up and not having a reason to get out of bed." That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Tom is my cousin, a typical American man, neat, athletic, loved gardening, and seemed to have the kind of life nothing could shake. A cozy wooden home on the outskirts of Atlanta, a kind wife, 2 college-age kids. Tom was a structural engineer, nearly 30 years in construction, precise, disciplined, and proud. He could name every bolt in every bridge and building he helped design. He was also a funny guy who started each morning brewing coffee for his wife, then stepped onto the porch to watch sunlight filter through the maple trees and listen to the birds. To him, life felt complete until age 54, when a mild stroke hit after a stressful day at work. He survived, but lost function in his right hand. His speech slowed, and his memory faded in parts. His career, his lifelong pride, was over. His wife, after years of caregiving, quietly walked away, emotionally exhausted. His kids, now grown, rarely visited, caught up in their own lives. From a man full of purpose and energy, Tom became a quiet shadow inside his own home. I still remember my first visit after it all happened. The once sunlit home was now dim and dusty. The porch plants were dry, dead leaves covered the walkway. Tom sat in the kitchen, wearing an old sweater, his eyes distant, like someone who had stopped believing in tomorrow. I asked, "Do you still go out to the garden?" He gave a half smile. "Garden? The weeds took over. I don't really see the point of cutting them anymore." I didn't know what to say. Those days, Tom lived as if just waiting for time to pass, not because he wanted to die, but because he no longer felt he belonged to life. What broke my heart wasn't what he had lost, but how he was slowly losing himself. The jokes disappeared. The light in his eyes faded, and his hope, whatever was left of it, fell silent. One day, while I was reading a book on meditation in the living room, Tom asked me, "Do you really think that stuff can help people like us?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I gently invited him to sit with me for 5 minutes. No talking, no phones, no past, no future. Just sit, in silence, looking out the window where sunlight touched the dusty glass. Tom agreed, not because he believed, but because he had nothing to lose. And that 5 minutes was the first moment of Tom's return. Slow, fragile, but real, because everything begins with just one small moment, doesn't it? Sometimes people don't need to be rescued by words. They just need someone to sit beside them in silence. That day was a quiet, midweek morning. I woke up early, like most old folks do, and went downstairs to make myself some tea. As I poured the hot water, I noticed Tom was already sitting on the porch, wrapped in a thin blanket, eyes gazing out toward the backyard. I quietly made a cup of warm lemon water, something he used to scoff at, calling it flavorless, and placed it beside him. He didn't look at me, but I saw his hand gently lift the cup. Not fast, not forced, just present, as if he was learning again how to be here. No one spoke. Only the soft sound of the wind chimes swaying under the porch roof, a few delicate tinkling notes in the breeze, and for some reason, those sounds felt sacred. I remember that moment vividly. To someone else, it might seem like nothing, but for Tom, it was a return. Before the stroke, Tom lived fast, too fast. He'd sip coffee while reading the market, replying to emails, and listening to a podcast simultaneously. A morning without productivity, that was a wasted morning. But now, he sat just to drink warm water. No phone, no plans, no deadlines, just drinking. And in that moment, I saw something shift in his eyes, as if he realized he was still here. And that was enough. The next day, I walked past the living room and saw Tom sitting near the window holding a small notebook. He wasn't writing, just holding it open, staring at the page. "Iyoket, writing your memoirs?" He shook his head, still looking out. "No, just jotting down what I saw this morning." Then he read aloud slowly, like speaking to himself. 6:34 a.m. A single leaf fell. No wind, it just fell. 6:47. Sunlight hit the corner of the wall, a slanted yellow. 7:2. A squirrel ran across the fence. I think it was laughing. I laughed out loud. Tom smiled too, eyes bright, so different from the emptiness I'd seen weeks before. And I understood. He was learning how to live again, by observing, recording, and cherishing even the smallest things. One chilly afternoon, I brewed a pot of ginger tea and brought it outside. We sat, quiet again. Then Tom turned and whispered, "I used to think mindfulness meant knowing a lot or achieving something, but now I think it might just mean sitting still and finally stopping the running." I turned away, pretending to look at the trees. I didn't want him to see my eyes watering. From a warm cup of water, from a chair by the window, from a falling leaf, Tom was taking his first steps back to himself. No need for sacred texts. No need to be enlightened overnight. Just slowing down, noticing each gentle movement of life. And in that, the Dharma was already present. After those quiet mornings, I thought maybe Tom was finally doing better. He was eating more regularly, sleeping better, talking to me more. But then one night, as I stepped out onto the porch to grab more firewood, I saw him sitting there in the dark. No lamp, no music, just his thin figure, head bowed, shoulders faintly shaking. I froze. In that moment, I realized some wounds still lived deep inside him, quiet, hidden, untouched. I sat beside him, didn't ask anything. After a while, Tom spoke barely a whisper, like confessing something shameful. "You know, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of being alive, and no longer being useful." I was silent. This was my brother, a man who used to speak at national conferences, lead teams of hundreds, be called sir, and boss, and chief. Now he feared the silence, the ordinariness, and I understood. It wasn't the illness that hurt him the most. It was his identity, the part of him that once thrived on achievement, productivity, recognition. When that self collapsed, he felt like nothing. The next morning, I made him coffee, but instead of asking, "How are you feeling?" I asked, "What were you thinking about last night?" Tom looked at me, then smiled faintly. I was thinking, if I were a dried up tree, no fruit, no flowers, would I still be worth keeping? His question caught in my throat, not because it was sad, but because it was so real. I paused, then asked, "And if you saw a bare old tree in the middle of a garden, would you cut it down?" He hesitated. "Probably not. I'd let it stay." I nodded slowly. Because even a bare tree has value. Maybe it offers shade or a place for birds to land. We both smiled, a soft smile, but to me, that moment marked something big. Tom was beginning to see himself through new eyes. Later that day, rain poured down. I expected Tom to head back inside, like he always did, but instead, he stood beneath the porch roof, arms outstretched, catching raindrops on his hands. "Remember how we used to do this as kids?" he said, eyes to the sky. "Not for fun, just to feel alive." I nodded, and in the rhythm of that rain, I realized even pain can be a doorway to mindfulness, as long as we dare to face it without judgment. That night, Tom wrote in his notebook, "I used to think being positive meant smiling, being strong, acting cheerful, but today I understand. Being positive can mean sitting still in the rain, not blaming the weather, simply knowing I'm still breathing, still feeling, and that alone means I'm still alive." Tom wasn't trying to be his old self. He didn't say things like, "Everything will be okay." Instead, he chose to stay with himself, honest about his vulnerability, and slowly, he began redefining his worth, not by what he could do, but by how he lived, moment by moment, and that, I believe, is the deepest meaning of true positivity in the spirit of Buddhism. Winter slowly faded. Snow melted slowly. The sun peeked out shyly. But something in Tom had already changed. I usually woke up before him, but now, more often, I'd find Tom already outside, sitting on the porch in that old wooden chair, facing the damp lawn still wet with dew, holding a cup of tea, eyes distant but calm. No news, no radio, not even his phone, just stillness. One morning, I asked, "What do you think about when you sit out here?" He smiled. "Nothing, really. I just watch the sun rise, wait for the dew to drop from the grass tip, and I realize I don't need to do anything to deserve being alive." One evening, Tom said something out of the blue. No dramatic music, no big moment. "You know, I think I used to live like I was in a competition, but never knew who the judge was." I stayed quiet. It continued. I wanted someone to say I was strong. I wanted doctors to say I still had a chance. I wanted my ex-wife to regret leaving. I wanted my friends to admire me again. But now, I just want to live each day, each moment, without needing to prove anything. That was the first time I saw my brother truly let go. Not give up, but put down the weight. Letting go of the pressure to be strong. Letting go of chasing a better version. Just mindfulness, right here, right now. Tom started doing small things, not because he should, but because he wanted to. He planted lavender by the window, not for anyone to see, just to inhale the scent each time he passed by. He hung a bamboo wind chime on the porch, its soft notes, like nature's whisper. Each night, he wrote 3 things he was grateful for, even if they were as simple as, "Today was sunny. I finished a whole bowl of soup. I didn't feel pain today." I noticed something. Tom never said, "Be positive." Instead, he lived like someone learning how to breathe all over again. Every action, every gesture carried a quiet belief. I may not control the outcome, but I can choose how I live this moment. Before leaving the cabin, Tom asked me to mail a letter addressed to a support group he had found online. I still remember the last lines of his letter. If you're reading this on a hard day, I want you to know you don't need to win. You just need to be awake, sitting under a tree, listening to birdsong. That's already a victory. Positivity isn't hoping everything will turn out fine. It's accepting reality, then choosing to live better from there. If you followed Tom's story this far, I believe you might be carrying some of the same questions he once had. Do I still matter if I can't work anymore? How do I not break after losing everything I once took pride in? Am I wasting what's left of my life? You are not alone, and more importantly, you are not meaningless. Life, in its deepest truth, doesn't ask you to do something grand. It just asks you to be fully here in one small moment with mindfulness and gratitude. If Tom's story touched something in you, share it with a friend, someone who might need a little light today. Take 5 quiet minutes each morning, not to meditate or pray, but simply to be with yourself. And if these stories bring value to your days, don't hesitate to subscribe so we can keep walking this path together as a quiet, kind community where everyone gets to be themselves. We don't need to wait for storms to pass before learning to love the sunlight. You don't have to wait for a perfect life to begin living peacefully. All it takes is one breath, present, real, with yourself. And maybe that's the most positive thing you'll do today. See you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring this mindful life together, one quiet story at a time.